So this is my late May bank holiday. How is yours going? So quick update. We've not beautifully, but have sorted those 3 holes out. We don't need the wiring tabs at the top, so we've put X's on those to remove those later. We've trimmed this further. That was part of the plan, I promise you. And this piece now is dropped down by about 10mm. So we've had to cut that out, put reinforcement plate in and weld in 2 nuts. That's done. And what else have we been up to? Haven't welded that up yet, but I have welded that threaded bar stud thing in. And the purpose of that is quite simple, really. It's going to hold our little reservoir there, which will run down to our clutch. Once they're bled in that, you don't really need to keep an eye on the levels, so this will do just nicely. There's plenty in there. I mean, if it starts leaking, they lose pressure, so it's a bit sort of a moot point that you need to keep topping it up. It's not like screen wash, which is also going to be impossible to get to, but let's talk about that later. I've worked out what we want to do on the screen, the windscreen. I think I'm going to put 2 studs in and weld them in from behind. I'll plug the nasty holes and it'll actually make it easier for fitment as well. Trying to get something on a stud down in that tricky spot is much easier than trying to wangle a nut in. We also need to fill that hole up there. We've plug welded 2 holes, getting there slowly. And then this is like, you can get these on many websites. It's like a rally car kind of matrix pipes through the bulkhead jobby. Ideally, I'd like it to go right angle on the other side as well. That would be perfect, but I think this will work fine. I think they're always often fitted the other way as well. Don't know, don't care, it's going to fit this way. So it's going to fit something like that in there, a little bit more trimming and it'll fit in basically. So 2 pipes coming out the top, 2 going down, but obviously we need to fill our holes in. So we're going to get the brake master cylinder off again, and we're going to plate up those 2 holes, and then we can actually drill the holes for these. And then these will be, I'll probably put a couple of nuts in, welded in too, and then we'll use a bit of neoprene or a gasket of some sort that'll stop onto, a bit like that one. So let's get on with those things that I just said. Oh yeah, and then we'll change the master cylinder. We'll talk about that in a second. So, custom Ford/Mini/motorbike master cylinder reservoir for Kev. This is components. So we've got an internally threaded, there's a word for these, I can't remember what they're called, but there basically is a long nut. We're going to weld that to the bulkhead, so then we can bolt this onto the bulkhead, nice and easy, nice and simple, where we showed you earlier. A couple of screws to hold the cap on. Once we've filled and bled, there's no reason why this should really have any issues with like having to top it up regularly, but it is accessible easily, so that's a handy thing. Then just a simple length of fuel line, which is also brake fluid resistant. A little connector in here, which has been squeezed over. We kept fettling it as a brass connection until it was basically a press fit. And then we have this right angled little, it was a bleed for bleeding brakes. I needed something right angled that was soft, silicon, heat resistant, and we just drilled it out with a big drill bit, so it would fit nicely on the master. On the master cylinder itself, because of course we're coming out at a right angle, we just used a little bit on the Dremel, which is like a milling bit, so it looks a bit like that, just to mill a little channel in the side because the pipe's coming off in this direction. So let's get all that sorted and fit it and show what it looks like. I'm actually pleased with that. You might not be, but I am. It means that there's clearance for the oil filter here. We might actually be able to get the oil filter off without removing the engine. It means it's out the way for the brake lines, yes, and the main cable that's going to come in here, the main power cable. So also good things. It's nice and accessible to top it up and obviously start it off. And well, yeah, it's resistant. Should do the job. It's keeping out of the way of everything. Bob on. Right. Now we move on to the actual bit from there to gearbox. So what might be next on our list for that clutch? Well, you might recall in the past we had a pipe that was sort of bent and, well, mangled to be honest, along there, and it came up to this bracket. A couple of problems with that. It still wasn't right because the pipe was too long, and then the hose section from the pipe onto the gearbox was too long, and that bracket gets badly in the way of getting the gearbox in, getting the engine in. So, well, yeah, that's no good. So I thought oh, the Fiesta originally must have some like sort of hydraulic hoses, or someone must make a hose for the replacement and bits. Looked in the aftermarket, and a company did. A company called Proline Braided Lines. I'm not saying they gave it to me free. I paid for this, and actually it was a custom order as well. So the original was something like 1400mm long, and I've gone for 1 meter long, 1000. Nice stainless fittings on the end, custom colour, custom line. Wasn't expensive, I think it was about 35 quid. They can post the standard length ones out next day, but they had to make this for me, so it's a few days. So this will plug straight into there, then run along there and run straight into the gearbox. It also reduces the amount of connections, which is a nice thing. So just one connection either end rather than one over there somewhere, which is tricky and difficult to get to. So we're going to get a little one of these rubber clamps, pop it down there, run the line down, and work out where this cable's going to go, cut that bracket off, and we're pretty much ready then to put the engine back, do the suspension to put the engine back in. Yeah, just a small matter of the suspension. Okay, let's cut that off. Let's get this lovely orange tubing, pipe, hose thing. That's the clutch master reservoir. Going into clutch master with the switch. I haven't shown you that yet, but it's got the new switch on it. And then to our custom lovely braided orangey wonderful line. And now clip straight to our gearbox once the engine's back in, so that's good. Got rid of that bracket there. Those will stay out the way for us while we're putting the engine in. It's just this kind of area here, you need to kind of drop it in, and that bracket was in the way. So that's all good. So the next thing to do now is to put the suspension cups, the rubber cones, in there. Build up this arm properly. You can't do that with the gearbox in. And then the suspension will be ready to fit for proper, for putting the weight on it. And we'll look at dampers too soon as well. That's exciting. So let's get the front end built up. Nothing really interesting there, we're just going to put the cones in. There's videos available on YouTube how to do that. You either somehow wangle them in whilst got the lower arm in, or you use I'll show the tool. Use one of these tools, which basically pulls the cone up so you can get the arm in. So we'll be using those, I expect, as we've got all the access we need. So let's crack on with that, I think.